Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Octavian, and I am going to be guiding you here through the ULoL Campus Series Round of 4 match between Texas A&M and George Mason University. Now, we are deep into the brackets at this point. As that little intro graphic told you, there are 500 plus teams here in the ULoL Campus Series, or there were. A lot of them having been booted out at this point as we've winnowed it all the way down to just the round of 4. And as such, there really are no pushovers left to be pushed over by one team or another as we get through a few of the bands here, heading into the last bands. And so because of that, you'd expect to see all of the highest seeded teams conglomerating here at the top, but George Mason have had quite a journey. They were not the favorites coming into the playoffs, though they did make it into the playoffs pretty handily, pretty decidedly for sure. However, they are the 18th seed right now. A little bit underrated for that 18th seed for sure. As anyone familiar with the school and with the team can tell you, they possibly could have deserved a higher seed placement, though that can be debated back and forth. But they have suffered losses during the regular series, losses in series as well as a whole series loss, and that makes them look a good amount more vulnerable than Texas A&M, who are coming into this with a perfect record at the moment. So we've certainly got an interesting match on our hands, a bit of a Cinderella story for George Mason, perhaps. And they're just one series away from reaching their regional finals. So very impressive from these guys. We are into the round of 4, as I said at the top. And welcome everybody to the broadcast. Let's get down through the bands. Let's just quickly list those off for anybody who is the audible learner instead of the visual type, with an Ash, Shen, and Lulu over on the side of Texas A&M, they're going to be on blue side, and GMU has taken away a Graves, Soraka, and Gangplank. Soraka being an interesting one. Potentially a target man towards bot with B here, though, to be fair, Soraka has climbed back into the meta to some degree recently, much to my own chagrin. Not really a fan of the champion myself, but hey, personal beef aside, we're not going to be seeing her one way or another. Jace picked as the first pick here, going to Korea Bread, and we'll see what the answer is back to GMU. And as you may have noticed, due to the lack of a second voice on the microphone, you are going to be stuck with just me today, folks. I sadly do not have my co-caster Rapid. He's feeling rather ill. Something certainly seems to be going around. I wasn't able to make the broadcast yesterday because I've been coughing up a storm recently, but I've gotten over that, thankfully, and I'll be able to walk you through not only the picks and bans here, but also the rest of what I'm sure will be a very exciting series. Azrael Nami, the duo lane locked in, Kondo and Alex looking for priority on that, as well as the fact that they don't, I think, want to give away much of their solo lane in terms of just their general draft over on the side of GMU. We'll see what the answer is back. The safest thing to do here for A&M in terms of hiding their hand, rather than in terms of grabbing power picks, would be to pick a duo lane themselves, because then they stall picking on that mid lane. If the Jace is going top, which it might still go mid. We're only a few picks into the draft here, so we don't have a lot of information, but they're able to stall at least on one of their solo lanes, be that top or mid, depending on where they flex this Jace to, and can attempt to get a counter pick, though being on the blue side, they're going to have to blind pick something. Just depends on what that is, really going to be manipulated by GMU. As Karma, Rumble are going to be the 2 picks. So it will be Jace in the mid lane, Rumble going to be going top, and already we've got quite a bit of damage. 2 carry solo laners for the side of Texas A&M. See what GMU answer back. There's been a lot of debate on what the best pick is into Rumble. A lot of people saying things like Renekton, because he does do very well in the laning phase particularly, but not nearly as useful in team fights as a Rumble can be, and Rumble certainly has the tools to at least survive the lane. Not anticipating this Mordekaiser getting locked in, though, to be fair, Mordekaiser has seen more professional play in the last few months now than I think he's seen in the rest of the entire existence of Mordekaiser, which he was released with at the beginning of the game, so that's a little bit of a depressing stat. One that I'm just guessing at. I technically don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it's a pretty accurate guess, given that FlyQuest has actually played Mordekaiser a good 3 or 4 times now, but that's neither here nor there. Maokai would be an interesting lock-in. There it is. Yeah, Maokai into the Rumble. Doesn't do great in that matchup, and Maokai also recently got nerfed, so to see the Maokai pick is certainly interesting, and an Orianna blind pick in the mid lane means that they are holding off on their jungle pick to try and get some priority there as far as counter picking goes. Lots of AD carry options available here to Chuck Norris. Not all of these, though. These are certainly wide and much more varied than the AD carry pool would be. The guy trying to give me a bad case of epilepsy here as he's flaring through all these different champions. But that aside, I'd like to actually see the Lucian that he's hovered once or twice in this random grab bag of champions that he's been clicking through. Lucian has seen a lot of changes. It would get priority in the lane, especially alongside a Karma and into an Ezreal. And, I just want to see some higher level players play the Lucian after his changes, because he did get a lot smoother animations as he levels. Sivir could be an interesting choice as well, though, provide some utility to the team, and I think Zac is a really safe jungle pick for Glory Imperador. May not be a usual one, you don't see a lot of Zac players around nowadays, but he's certainly not a weak champion, I would say, by any means. He is a specific piece to a specific puzzle. He does one job. He does engage and tank, so I suppose that's technically two jobs, but he does them very, very well. So if you've got a composition that needs some tankiness, needs some engage, which I would actually say Texas A&M were in need of, Zac can be a powerful tool for that, especially if the player is comfortable, which I believe Glory Imperador is on this champion. Firefly is going to grab Rek'Sai, which will be the answer back to the Zac. A jungle standby that's been part of the meta pretty much since Rek'Sai's inception. She's very much an all-rounder, not actually in the same vein as Zac, who is that puzzle piece that fits a specific puzzle. Rek'Sai can slot into almost any puzzle, regardless of the composition around her. And with 5 champions picked on 2 teams, we are ready to get into some League of Legends action. However, to prevent any stream ghosting shenanigans, we do have the 3-minute spectator delay, and in that time, I'd like to give a brief shout out to our sponsors. We are, of course, sponsored by Band Gaming. They're a social app and the primary social app here of the Collegiate Star League. They've got features such as group creation, boards, calendar functions, polls, chats. Recently, they've added call functionality, and all of this is just to help you wrangle your friends together for a game night, be that tabletop gaming, video gaming, or LARPing. I don't know, whatever you want to do. I'm not going to judge. I talk about video games for a living, so really I can't really judge that harshly, can I? Twitch.tv is going to be our next sponsor here, and hopefully they're going to be our sponsor for quite a while yet, as they have been our sponsor for quite a while in the past, and they've been gracious and wonderful the whole time. You should know of their service. You're listening to my voice on it right now. Our final sponsor on the list, but by no means our least, is Asus, and we want to welcome them to the CSL family recently for the 2016-17 season. They're the provider of everything esports, from all of their wonderful products such as monitors to all of their other wonderful products such as laptops, routers, graphics cards, motherboards, and more. Don't enter your next battle unless you are equipped with some Asus gear. One last thing I do want to mention, we are hiring here at the Collegiate Star League. If you think you've got the chops to be our social media manager, then please do head on over to cstarleague.com and root around there for a bit more information on that topic. My name is Octavian. I am sadly not joined by anyone today aside from you lovely folks in the audience, so you're going to be stuck with me once we get into game. Give me just about a minute and a half to play a quick musical and commercial break, and we'll be on to the Rift very shortly.
Oh, you make me wanna talk back to you. Say it like that. If I hate you, then find someone new. Baby, but you know I never will. No, so I choke you down just like a pill. Oh yeah. but you know I never will. No, so I choke you down just like a pill. Oh yeah. Take you like a pill. Get my fill.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun. To dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one, only one.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I realize some people are having some issues actually seeing the stream right now. There doesn't seem to be anything that I can do about it on my end. I've rooted through OBS a little bit to try and find some settings that may have gone wrong. It seems like there might be some sort of issue with twitch.tv at the moment in some browsers. Try restarting your browser, refreshing the page. I'm getting different reports from different people saying that some people can see it just fine, some people are seeing nothing but a black screen. So if you can hear my voice right now, but you can't see the wonderful action happening on the Rift, try refreshing your browser, maybe resetting your cookies, something along those lines. I'm really not sure what the issue could be, but it does seem to be more local to Twitch than it is on my end. All that aside, though, my name is Octavian, and we've got some action on the Rift here between Texas A&M and GMU, and we're about to get into it, as we did miss just about the first 40 seconds or so while I was fiddling with the settings. Apologies for that, but thankfully nothing of too much note happened, just a little bit of laning phase. Let me get the overlay all fine and dandy. There we go. And yeah, hopefully we can resolve some of these technical issues as we move forward. And let's talk a little bit about laning phase, shall we? As the directed camera hovers on the lane that I had the most concern for GMU, which was this Maokai. Did recently see a pretty heavy nerf, actually, in his ability to keep a lane pushed, or just to try and counter a push from an enemy laner like this Rumble is going to do. A lot of damage removed from his sapling toss. The initial landing hit of that no longer does nearly as much damage, and that doesn't seem like such a huge nerf, and really in terms of Maokai's ability to hold down a 1v1, it isn't, but that wasn't Maokai's job. He's supposed to just be able to farm out a lane and become a mega tank in the endgame, and he can still be quite tanky for sure, but he just ends up not being able to hold his own in the lane nearly as well. And then take into account as well the fact that he's into the Rumble matchup, and I feel a bit of anxiety for this lane on the part of Ion. Though to be fair, it being shoved up pretty much permanently is going to make Peach Nayan? I don't know. Those are two consonants, two vowels next to each other. 3 if you count the Y. 4 if you count the A as well. That I'm not sure how I should pronounce. So we're going to just call him Peach. Or her. And leave it at that. Though Peach seems to be guarding against that by getting some very solid deep vision. Really cool ward placement, actually. We saw Peach go deep into the enemy jungle and drop a ward in the back of the Krug camp. So that's going to be spotting out where Firefly goes. But to be fair, Firefly did start topside and roam bottom through his jungle clear. Still very, very aware and solid ward placement from the top lane training. I like it. Koreabred getting actually out-traded hard there from Rao, not able to get the speed buff off of his acceleration gate and get into the trade. And yeah, laning continues as per usual. Koreabred taking a chunk in the mid lane though is going to have to fall back a bit. Does have a few more potions, or just one more potion to chug away at though. And I imagine action will be slim to come by in the early days of this game, as we are into the round of 4 here, and neither side really wants to leave themselves open to anything even resembling a mistake that the enemy team could take advantage of. Hopefully, we've had some resolutions to our technical issues as the game continues to wear on here. Let me just get a quick update on that real quick. As the bottom lane, I think, is the one that I still haven't really touched on too much. The Sivir pick, far more utility focused than I anticipated out of Chuck Norris and just A&M as a whole in this draft. It's going to be a pretty, honestly, rather boring lane down here a little bit. As Ezreal v Sivir is not really one that's going to get all that explosive. Not a lot of damage between these two AD carries. But the supports are going to actually be a more interesting matchup than the AD carries, which is often the case during the laning phase, as Karma v Nami certainly has the utility necessary to make something work. Since we've got two pretty solid junglers as far as gank potential are concerned, we've got an eye down there. Speaking of deep vision, as I was earlier as well, it looks like GMU has a priority on that top side. Just as much, if not more so, than A&M did, as they've got wards scattered about the enemy blue buff jungle, and Rek'Sai tunneling through it as well, so real priority on top side of the map vision here from both teams, as Zac roams towards the mid lane. Doesn't look like there's going to be anyone open to any sort of ganks just yet, though, but we do have Glory Imperator going for an invade. Not going to be able to steal away anything, because there's nothing to steal away at the moment. Jungle camps all having been taken. Chuck Norris stepping ahead of that Aqua Prison, does take a few procs from the Tidecaller's Blessing. And Chuck Norris and B here are able to play rather aggressively in this lane with the comfort of knowing that Zac is waiting in the wings should something go down. As Ione is so desperate to shove this wave out that he's even going to drop his ulti into it, burn away what mana he had remaining. I've got to give props to the guy, though. He's held even in CS in a, I would say, very unfavorable lane matchup. I very much think that this Rumble should be pulling ahead. Maybe now with some penetration and a level 6 breakpoint, we'll see if Peach can start to snowball that lane out. Good combo by Korea Bread, and ending it there with the execute. Gets the exhaust as well out of Root. Oh, that is really big. That's a lot of kill potential traded away. A lot of protection as well in that summoner, and that Rout's not going to have. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw Glory Imperator maybe make a quick jaunt to the mid lane after his first base now. Especially if he can hit level 6 before showing up. That could be really, really big. We still have yet to see any sort of action from either of these junglers. It looks like neither side is willing to make the first step in this tangle of death. And we have Glory Imperator taking that first step. There's the knock-up onto Alex. He has hit that level 6, and Alex is going to be going down. This is a quick and easy first blood for the side of Texas A&M. Teleport in from Peach, not even necessary, and a little bit unfortunate actually that he did burn that. It's going to give some breathing room to Ione, who's going to be able to farm out a bit in the top side. And breathing room well and truly needed for sure in this matchup. And yeah, not even burning the flash or the heal off of Kondo. Kondo and Alex both realizing that after the knockup had landed, that Nami was very much already dead. Blue buff stolen away by the Rek'Sai, but there's Zac over the wall. A two-man shockwave. Actually, no, Glory Imperator managed to step out of it, but Korea Bread still goes down as a flash forward from Firefly. There's the Rumble ulti, though, cutting off the escape out of the jungle. It looks like Firefly will be trading his life back. And it's a 1-for-1 trade in the blue buff jungle as Firefly goes aggressively into the enemy top side. These teams now looking pretty evenly matched and poised to snowball further into the early game. Both junglers refusing to give an inch, lest the other take a mile. And Peach will bully Ione back in a lane matchup that's going to start to fall further and further in favor of this Rumble, particularly as he begins to build some penetration. What is nice for Ione, though, is the fact that he does still have his teleport available, so we can maybe see him get something out of that. But there's the flash forward as Firefly has roamed topside again. Peach will flash away before the Unburrow can knock him up and further inconvenience him. And the shove will continue onto the top lane outer. Apologies if people are still having visual issues. I've been fiddling with OBS, trying to see if there's some sort of setting that I can adjust to fix this, but it seems that it's not on my end. Either that or there's something beyond my expertise that's going wrong. I apologize. Do attempts to clear your cache or something along those lines, but Ione is getting dove, and this is going to be further advantage going over to Peach. And Ione in the top lane, Korea Bread chased away, burning with an ignite on his head, and it's 3-1 over to Texas A&M. A start that maybe isn't too terribly surprising if you just looked at the seeds, but could be the beginning of the end of the Cinderella story that GMU have had going so far. And let me know in stream, in the chat, folks, if people are still having issues. It does seem to be perhaps some sort of issue with cookies or cache or something along those lines, so clear your cache as best you can. Clean up your cookies. Don't leave those crumbs all over the place. They get very messy. And yeah, please do stay tuned. Apologies for the technical delays it seems to be on Twitch's end. And with that, I'm going to end that discussion and stick to the gameplay at hand. The start of Azonius for Ro, I think, is a very solid itemization choice, considering his laning opponent in the form of Korea Bread. However, he is far enough ahead that I'd actually be interested in seeing him maybe finish off the Morello before going into the full Zonias. Something along those lines, as he does have Lost Chapter for mana sustain in lane. There's a few options here for the Orianna for sure. The Morello will provide some very, very powerful utility stats in the form of cooldown reduction and all that. Let's see where the game leads us as A&M continue to shove in onto some of these outer turrets, and really the single bright spot remaining for GMU so far, admittedly nothing is too terribly dark, is in the mid lane, but there's the first turret of the game going down. A&M are going to take that one for themselves. The Sivir ulti actually pulling them away from Firefly's attempted gank as Alex turns back around with the ulti. Korea Bread, though, not caught by the tidal wave, is not going to be slowed up. Ioan now getting chased away in the top lane by Peach, who does drop the ulti, and this looks to be a very, very dead Maokai, and Peach continuing to snowball away with the lane that I was most concerned about. As Texas A&M don't look to be able to take anything further than that turret as we return to the bottom side, but a kill top and a turret bot means advantages all around, and A&M continue to snowball away with this game. Maybe the Dragon going over to GMU, though, as they do seem to have, at the very least, healthier, well, health bars. And thus might be able to contest this one a bit more solidly. Looks like GMU want more control before they attempt this objective, though, if they even have that in mind. I'm surprised they didn't try to rush that down. It felt to me like they had priority there, at least for a little bit, but to be fair, there's no teleport on the Maokai, and there is one on this Rumble who is a menace right now, so they could have had a teleporting Rumble coming in behind them, and even without Equalizer up, that could have been very scary, so GMU's decision not to go for the Dragon, perhaps the right call. We may never know. Turret going down does at least free up the Ezreal to continue to farm up a bit. Potentially able to outscale this Sivir. In fact, by most accounts will. Ezreal does scale fairly well into the end game. Though a crit build for Sivir, which it looks like that's what Chuck Norris is going for, can do quite a lot of damage in a team fight in and of its own right. So keep an eye out for those boomerang bouncing blades. The alliterative menace as we get into the team fights. Ioan roaming from the top side. I think this is the right call for this Maokai. His strength lies in his utility. And he's going to need to find somewhere other than his lane to make his time worthwhile. As Peach chases Ioan away, and I honestly think this top lane turret going down, while it would be global gold over to the side of Texas A&M, which they already have a good chunk of, and are starting to grow a decent lead off of, might just be much needed breathing room for this Maokai, because Ioan just can barely survive up here. I don't know if he's even safe under his turret. Peach might, once he has Equalizer, which he does just now, actually just came off cooldown, be able to even just dive this solo. What you want is a lopsided fight where the Maokai shows up and the Rumble can't for some reason. And it looks like Peach is going to take the turret one way or another, even with Maokai having stuck around for another wave or two. Caught between a rock and a hard place, Ioan just needs some more time to come back into this match. 30 to 40 CS back and a few kills down. Top lane looking pretty rough for GMU. Dragon, by the way, was attempted as that turret was going down, but GMU were forced away off of it. No casualties or even any large cooldowns burned, it seems. But still, GMU just not having enough priority there, even with a top lane shove on the part of the enemy team to take down a Dragon. Doesn't look good for them here in the mid game, but doesn't look irreparably bad either for sure. We can harken this back to the standings, and you know, maybe not be so surprised that GMU are coming into this one a little bit worse for the wear, a little bit weaker in the early game, because they are the 18th seed. They are much further down the ladder than Texas A&M, who are sitting number 3, and as such are heavily favored to be winning this series if you just look at it from the numbers. But GMU have had such a great run over their last few matches, and GMU really just, they don't look like an 18th seed. They made it into the round of 4. Of course they don't look like an 18th seed. That's for dang sure. But they're not looking like maybe a second or a first seed. They're not looking like they're on the same level as Texas A&M here. To be fair though, their composition is heavily oriented around team fighting. They've got a Nami and an Orianna, and alongside that a Maokai to be a great front line. Even Rek'Sai can do her part. So if they can just survive this mid game and get to team fights, very well this whole sort of bumpy road of an early game can be put behind them and can be forgot. It's just going to be a matter, I think, of getting enough farm onto the Maokai so that he can be an effective tank. Getting that first item and a half, maybe 2 items completed for him. And then allowing Kondo and Rout to scale up a bit, allowing their damage dealers to do work. And they've already got some gas in that tank. They've got Rout doing quite well out of the mid lane. He's got like a 40 CS lead or so and a kill up. So while there's strength on top for A&M, there's strength in mid for GMU. And a little bit of a stutter there in the Spectre decline, but it looks like we've recovered. And the shove up the mid lane from Texas A&M shows me that they don't really want to leave Rout alone anymore. They've recognized potentially the strong suit of their opponents, but Peach clearing vision in the enemy jungle may have extended a little bit too far. He has to flash into the back of the empty Krug pit to get away, and he's still rather far up this lane. Ione can just get in range for another twisting advance, managing to dodge away from that second Electro Harpoon, avoids the slow. Kondo dashing forward, gets some good damage down, but Peach is looking to turn this around, at the very least claim a 1-for-1. Kondo though kiting backwards is not going to let him claim him that easily. The Q gets blocked by a minion. Peach claims the 1-for-1, maybe even the 2-for-1. He turns back around, he's burning away Ione, and it's a double kill to the Rumble. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, it's a 4v3 at worst for A&M, so they're going to be able to shove in, take a secondary turret, and suddenly Peach just owns this game 5-0. Good lord. There's the potential knockup from Glory, but it gets avoided by the Orianna. Flash in from Rout, he manages to catch 1 at the very least, but it is the support. Preyseeker lands, Firefly is not nearly tanky enough to dive into this, not face first. But he's still going to keep the chase going. They're trying to get something off the back of this. There's the tunnel forward, but he's going to be instantly turned around on, and he's separated. He's way too far from the rest of his team. A teleport now coming in from Peach. This is disaster for GMU. They're going to be chased back to their inhibitor turret. Alex goes down. He's the final to fall in that fight. And Ione, lost and alone without a team to tank for, is just going to have to scurry back home. And this may be an inhibitor turret going down. Admittedly, there's not a huge minion wave here, but that may not matter. They've got decent health bars. They might be able to... No, they're not going to be able to tank this one out, especially not with the extra armor the turret gets from minions not being around. But maybe just this one wave plus those 2 minions from earlier will be enough. Yeah, turret goes down. All right, no inhibitor, but an inhibitor turret at 18.5 minutes. That is damn solid for Texas A&M, who over the course of the last 3 minutes just ran away with this game and looked like they were on the precipice of victory. They were on the precipice of turning this game decidedly in their favor, and then, well, they stepped over that precipice without much hesitation. Peach as well, just so strong now. Has that core of Zonia's plus Leandri's. And GMU are going to be hard-pressed to come back into this one. All the things that I said earlier about the composition still stand true. They're very good for team fighting. They've got a ton of utility, a good tanky front line when this Maokai does get rolling, but all those provisions I said earlier as well, if anything, stand even truer. The Maokai is going to be even more hard-pressed to come into his own in this game. He's spent the last few minutes just roaming between lanes trying to find some sort of opening. There's the shockwave drop from Rout in an attempt to defend this outer turret, the last one remaining. But I think it's really just a matter of time until this falls. A&M, at the very least, don't have a ton of long-range auto attacks, I suppose. So they're not going to be that great at sieging turrets. I have to sort of take that back a bit because, I mean, Jace is just amazingly good at sieging alongside a Karma and all that as well. And they have dive potential with a Rumble Zac, so their siege is pretty scary, but not for the same reasons that like a Caitlyn composition of siege would be. They're not going to slowly whittle away your turrets. They're going to burst you away, force you back, and then take them down in your absence, which is as legitimate a way to do it as any. Karma clearing some vision is going to be pushed away out of the river. And the mid lane outer now being sieged upon by GMU, but I can't imagine this will last for very long. They're in a weak enough position that being that far up the lane is incredibly dangerous for them. It does at least get them a bit of vision into the enemy side of the jungle. And the way back into this one for GMU is to stall, is to keep decent vision control, not allow themselves to be flanked, and really keep control of vision over this Baron pit as well. It's a very, very real objective for A&M, even this early on in the game. And it's something which GMU have to keep in the back of their minds. I don't think A&M can do it by any means if they're interrupted. And if they do attempt it and then they get shoved away, the correct response is pretty much always going to be to back off. But if they manage to just gain vision control of the pit for long enough, it's a very real possibility that they take it in complete darkness. It looks like that might be a priority for them. And it seems like Twitch has been having some issues lately, folks, so for anybody who's listening to my voice but not watching the gameplay, please do try refreshing your browser, clearing your cache, all that sort of good stuff, because it seems to be on Twitch's end and not ours. We apologize for that. There's that vision control in the Baron pit that I was anticipating, and this game is on an accelerated clock for GMU, something which they're desperately looking to avoid. Chuck Normus landing some damage on Firefly, who has started to become a little bit tankier. On for the Cinder Hulk start, which is really the only logical option for him. He needs to be that front line for his team right now. Mainly because the Maokai simply can't at the moment. And yeah, that's one of the things that GMU are lacking right now. They've just got no measure of beefiness to stand up to this Rumble, who's going to be doing health bars of damage. Oh man, that could be bad actually. Be here tossed away by Chuck Normus. It doesn't look like GMU are going to be flanking on that. Instead, they're going to be going after Chuck Normus, who gets Flash unburrowed on, bursted down to a few hundred hit points, but he does manage to flash out of the fight in time. Glory Imperator getting stunned up. There's the Rumble ulti, cutting away route. Down to half health, just walking off the edge of that red carpet. But that's GMU getting away from a fight without losing anyone. That's as close to a victory as they've come over the last 10 or 15 minutes. Which admittedly is depressingly not very close, but it's an improvement. But the secondary turret in the top lane is now under fire. Quite literally, as Rumble shows up with Flame Spitter. And this will fall very, very quickly. No Sibber here, but Chuck Normus is going to show up in just a second. Alex is gone. Good lord. Peach didn't even get an assist on that. That was all Rumble. Imperator diving to the backlines. Two-man Shockwave, though. Pardon me. Bot would be here, going to go down as Kondo burns away. Peach is legendary. A title well earned this game. The guy is 8-0-2. And now it's a shove onto the inhibitor turret. And there's Peach. Oh my god. Route just burning. Peach is an unstoppable force right now. He is a galactic menace. And this is going to be an inhibitor going down. There's another open inhibitor on the bottom lane, which is actually being shoved by minions right now. So Texas A&M have their pick of the litter in terms of where they want to go. They've got Baron vision control. There's a dragon available if they want to go for one of the more token objectives. There's an inhibitor open on the bottom side, and they can still shove up mid lane if they feel like it because they've got free pressure top from an inhibitor being down. They've got the Rumble ulti available again. That is off cooldown. Sivir as well, and really the only things they're missing are their summoners off their AD carries. So basically Chuck just has to play the next team fight a little more cautiously than that last one we saw. And I don't really see any way that GMU come back into this one. Texas A&M simply need to make some sort of just disastrous mistake for GMU to have a chance in this match. But that doesn't mean that they don't have a chance in this series, as there's definitely going to be a game 2 and potentially going to be a game 3, and that's what you've got to be thinking about if you're GMU at this point in the match, because it is beginning to feel like a lost game at this point. Maybe has been for a little while, and you've got to think, I think, particularly about this top lane. The matchup, they picked fairly late in the draft, honestly. Late enough that they picked the Maokai into the Rumble and just had faith, I guess, that the Maokai could survive the lane, could become that tank in the endgame, and that really is not what happened. Admittedly, Peach had some great plays, some good equalizers, a 2v1. Like, those are the sorts of things that don't often happen in a game and you can't really count on. But outside of that, he also just dominated the lane because of the matchup. He got a kill with his jungler. He got some early solo kills. And those are the more quiet things that started the snowball rolling, that started getting him into a position where he could 2v1 and he could be 8-0. And you've got to guard against that in the draft. But now Baron is going to go down in very short order. Mountain Drake having fallen right before it, even buffing up their ability to take that. And yeah, A&M are on the fast track to winning this match. They've just got to steer clear of any big disastrous mistakes. Honestly, they could maybe even have a team fight that ends in disaster for them and still come out on top. It would take more than one giant disaster for them to fall from grace this match, as they are so very far ahead. More than 10k gold up, and with every single turret and every single global objective actually taken in favor for them. Baron, the 2 dragons, and all 8 turrets that have fallen this game, all going over to Texas A&M. And all 9 turrets, I should say, as the Nexus turret falls just to the power of the shove on top lane. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Texas A&M go for a quick jaunt back to base here after stealing away some buffs. Spend all that gold that they're sitting on. Let's take a brief look at that. Yeah, a few members over 1,000 gold in their pockets. And head to the bottom lane to take down that open inhibitor that they broke open not 10 minutes ago. Cash in on that earlier effort. Reap what they sow. This is a pretty textbook game so far, but that's not to say that there aren't things that GMU can change, even just going into the next draft. I've harped on the Maokai long enough, but it is something they'll need to fix. Maybe the Maokai pick itself can work well. Maybe you ban out the Rumble, you just don't pick it into a matchup where it's that difficult for the Maokai to survive. Maybe go for a more aggressive bottom lane. Honestly, there was very little action down there this game, as just evidenced by the 80 carry score lines. One is more like a support than an 80 carry, and the other one just has 2 deaths and nothing else. So maybe seeing Kondo on something more aggressively oriented for the lane, something like a Caitlyn or a Lucian. Really, they need to formulate more of an advantage in the early game. They maybe need to play more to the mid lane. Rout was doing great against Korea Bread. He had a series of great trades with him and even got a kill or 2. And has still kept a solid KDA, but his team has fallen around him. Maybe more jungle focus towards the mid lane, or just a great matchup for Rout could be the answer in the draft. We'll have to see once we get into it, as it seems like it's only going to be just a matter of time before we're into the next pick and ban phase. An inhibitor falls in the bottom lane, and a shove down the mid is all that remains, unless A&M just want to go straight for the victory here. There's only one Nexus turret up. Could be a very realistic option, but no, they're going to play this one by the book. They're going to regroup towards the mid. Steal away a jungle camp or 2. As they've really got their pick of the litter. They're kind of sitting at a buffet table full of horrible, horrible things for GMU. And every turret down except that last Nexus turret. A good 3-man shockwave into the full combo, but Rout is just annihilated as his team was nowhere to be seen. And that's a glimpse into what this game could have been for Rout, but it's a brief glimpse, as Texas A&M crush any glimmers of hope that remained in the eyes of GMU. There's the Nexus going down, and that is Texas A&M with the first game of our best of 3 series here today. Hope you all enjoyed that first match. We'll be getting into a next match very, very shortly. Just got to play a quick commercial break, and we're going to be right back.
Only $14.99.
Don't miss the call. Download Band. Communication made easy.